Hello everyone. So today we are speaking about assessment in online learning environment. Well, to be honest, assessment in online learning and in traditional or face-to-face classroom, the concepts to be covered in both formats are quite the same, except for the tools to be used. But actually, both tools for traditional and for the online can be used interchangeably. So today we're speaking about assessment, types of assessment, why we need to assess, and some key concepts. So the first is the concept of assessment. Assessment is more inclusive under broader term. It's a part of the whole educational process of teaching and learning. That's the definition according to Hedge. And Allen says, the scholar named Allen says, educational assessment is a systematic process of documenting and using empirical data on the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and beliefs to refine programs and improve students' learning. In terms of the assessment types, we can name only some of them, which are diagnostic assessment, formative and summative assessment, and interim assessments. The first is diagnostic assessment. It's a form of pre-assessment that allows teachers to determine students' individual strengths, weaknesses, knowledge, and skills prior to the instruction. It's primarily used to diagnose students' difficulties and to guide lesson and curriculum planning. So it might be error analysis, observations, pre-tests, and pre-interviews. So diagnostic assessment mostly is done in needs analysis. The second type is formative assessment. Well, actually, the term formative assessment, again, this is something broad. It refers to a wide variety of methods that teachers use to conduct in-process evaluation of students' comprehension, learning needs, and academic process during a lesson, during a unit, or a course. In other words, formative assessments are for learning, so we need to highlight it here, for learning, while summative assessments are of learning. So examples might include, but not limited with, online quizzes, self-assessment, Q&A sessions, rubrics, interactive games. So these portfolios, for example, these are all types of formative assessment, but it's not limited with this one. Please bear that in mind. The second type is summative assessment. Is the word as it implies an evaluation of the sum product of the lesson. Summative assessment is meant to evaluate the outcomes instead of looking at students' development at a particular point. So we are kind of measuring the learning outcomes. So it might be final tests, units, tests, or final writing tasks. Another concept we need to cover is interim assessment. Well, interim assessment is a test administered at different intervals during the school year to check students' grasp on content and to guide future instructions. They typically fall between formative and summative assessment during the school year, or basically these are midterms, so interim assessment, kind of midterms. So here is the triangulation of assessment. So the first is assessment for learning. This is our formative assessment. It occurs when teachers use inference about students' progress to inform their teaching. So, for assessment for learning is our formative assessment, which take form of rubrics, games, online quizzes, portfolios, and so on. Assessment of learning, as it says, we are assessing the learning. It occurs when teachers use evidence of student learning to make judgments on students' achievement against goals and standards. Assessment of learning. So this is from teacher's side. That's also from teacher's perspective as well. But this is assessment as learning. It occurs when students reflect and monitor their own progress to inform their future learning goals. So This is about the student. So the student assesses himself or herself. And so what is the purpose of assessment? So why do we need to assess? According to Harmer, these are on some of the reasons for testing. Placement test. Well, where do we put placement test? Which is that? Here. Progress test, achievement test, public examinations, proficiency test, and continuous assessment. For example, continuous assessment might go to interim assessment. Yep. And another concept that we need to cover is the concept of validity. Validity generally refers to how accurately a conclusion, measurement, or a concept corresponds to what is being tested. Validity is defined as the extent to which an assessment accurately measures what it is intended to measure. In other words, imagine that you are taking a course on reading. Yep, imagine that you are taking a course on reading. But by the end of the course, by the end of the semester, teachers assesses not your reading skills, but your writing and reading skills, both of them. So is it valid? Is it valid or invalid? Throughout the semester, you've been studying reading skills. You've been reading a lot. You've been practicing fast reading types of reading strategies. But when it comes at the end of this semester, you are taking a final exam related to the reading and writing. So is it valid? Another question to cover is the concept of reliability of marking. Well, according to Harmer, assessment tasks should be marked consistently, correctly, and fairly across different examinations, being assessed by the single marker as well as across different markers, cohorts, and locations. What it means is that, for example, if you are writing a task, a final task, for example, it can be a thesis or writing task, any. So if I gave you B plus, another teacher from another teacher should also give you more or less grade that is close to B plus. So both of the teachers should use similar grading criteria, rubrics, and the marks should be quite the same, B plus. So this is concept of reliability of marking. So if I gave you to a student A and the second teacher gives, for example, B minus or C plus, so there is a question. So we need to take the assessment again in that sense. Another aspect or concept that we need to cover is a washback or backwash effect. So a really good example of this backwash effect is our ENT. So we know that students, the majority of some students, especially purposefully prepare for the ENT. And some teachers also purposefully prepare their students to take this ENT or to get higher results in their ENT. So this is backwash effect. So when teachers purposefully prepare their students to take high-stake testing or to get the best results from high-stake testing, that refers to backwash effect. And now moving to the types of testing. According to Harmer, he identifies direct and two types of testing items. The first is direct testing item and the second is indirect one. Indirect test items include multiple choice, filling the gaps, clause tests, and reordering sentences. And in terms of direct test items, it includes, for example, writing instructions, answering to the email, or interviews. So direct test items most relate to the productive skills. The question is for you guys, which is better to practice in your teaching career? What are the pros and cons of direct and indirect test items? As well, I'll post some readings about authentic performance assessment tests, a short website that describes this process. And I also put the link to this one, online assessment tools for teachers, and some short explanation of interim assessment and a triangulation of assessment, which is assessment of learning, assessment for learning, and assessment as learning. And here is a reference. Thank you.